All right, hello and welcome to Day One Patch Podcast, episode 5. What was it, Matt?
Wait, you asked me
a
while
show
ago.
Host 514. Sorry, I had to bring up the window. I didn't have the layout up. Episode 514. I'm your host Ryan Johnson. Matt Lawrence is here, fellow Captain America viewer.
Along with many other people, yeah.
And Tim Spence. When did you abandon the MCU? Like,
Fellow
you don't watch it anymore?
MCU representative. I can't remember the last Marvel movie I watched. To be honest, it must have
potentially
been
Endgame.
Oh, it's more recent than that. It was like
Black Widow, Spider-Man 3,
Into the Spider-Verse. I did see the most.
That's not an MCU one. Into the Spider-Verse is not MCU.
Okay.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
3? Homecoming. That might be the last Marvel movie.
Oh no,
so.
there's the one after that.
Into the Spider Zone. What is it called?
I mean, the names are so.
What's the one?
Was it the one with all the Spider-Men? Like a bunch
what's that one called?
What's that one called?
Don't look at me. I have no idea.
That might be the last one I saw.
I call that one what I just called it.
Homecoming, Far From Home, and then the most recent one, No Way Home.
No Way Home.
Why home is in all of them? Who knows?
Yep.
That was a good one to see in theaters, though. You saw that one in theaters, or did you just watch that at home? At home.
In theaters. Yeah.
Nice.
Were people yipping and yelling and cheering? Because they were in our viewing. We were going nuts.
That was pretty intense, yeah.
It was awesome, though.
Yeah, it was awesome.
No, I think we saw it a couple of weeks after it come out, so people kind of already knew. And I think most of the audience there was like rewatchers, or maybe just people that don't cheer at movies. I
have noticed that people don't seem to. I don't know if it's enjoy or cheer or laugh as much as like the opening night. Maybe because that's like the super fans going and they're a little more exuberant.
There's a culture around it too, right? Like it's to go and be like part of that like first viewing group where everybody's going to be like freaking out.
Yeah. But I always get more energy out of that.
Deadpool and Wolverine. We did go and see that.
That's like super recent. Yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
People were freaking the hell out at the Top Gun opening night. That was crazy. It was awesome.
That was an awesome movie. I wish I could see that in IMAX again. That was fantastic.
I did it twice, and I knew I'd miss it, so I went and did it.
Yeah, and Screen X.
And Screen X, that's right.
All right, we're going to start with video game fun facts. Matt has prepared one for us, I hope.
I have, for sure. This is actually a part 2, sort of, on the last week, or like not last week, but on our last episode.
It missed the last one.
Well, I'm going to summarize. I covered the discovery of the Majora's Mask voice commands, and that led me into looking at how the voice commands worked, and that included the VRU, which is the voice recognition unit for the N64. And then that led me down another rabbit hole of research about the Famicom, the accessory called the FDS, and the microphone that worked with both of them. And so that's the part 2 this week. So it's all about Famicom. So I did the Famicom Mike Madness is what I titled it, plus FDS in brackets here. So basically the Famicom, which is the Japanese version of the NES, more or less, had a microphone built into its second controller. So the microphone could detect sound or voice input and relay that into a game. It wasn't very sophisticated. It mainly detected volume changes rather than actual speech or words. And there was a volume slider on the actual controller that controlled how much input the microphone picked up. So it could also mute it if it was turned all the way down, or again, it would kind of turn that input level up as you turned the volume slider up. Now, there were just a few games that utilized the microphone. However, some developers did get pretty creative with it. So a few notable examples include The Legend of Zelda in 1986. This is probably the most famous use of the microphone, or the one that showed up in my research the most. So in the Japanese version of The Legend of Zelda, certain enemies called Pole's Voice, which were rabbit-like creatures, were weak to loud noises, and players could shout into the microphone to instantly defeat them. Yep. This feature was removed in the NES version, leaving to confusion because the English manual still hinted at Pole's voice being weak to sound, and of course, there wasn't like a sound item in The Legend of Zelda in the NES version. There's also Takeshi's Challenge. This is also released in 1986. This is a notoriously bizarre and difficult game. At certain points, the game required players to sing into the microphone to progress. And since this game was developed with input from Takeshi Kitano, a famous Japanese comedian, it had a lot of unconventional mechanics. There was also, and this is another one that showed up in my researched quite a bit. There's also, I'm probably going to mess up the words here, but Zelda no Densetsu, the Hyrule Fantasy. This was for the FDS, or the Famicom Disk System, which I'll get into later in the fun fact. But this was the Famicom Disk System version of The Legend of Zelda that also used the microphone to defeat Pohl's voice, the exact same use case. Also, Kid Icarus, 1986, the game had a secret debug menu that could be accessed by using the microphone in, again, only the Japanese version. Raid on Bungling Bay, 1985, and players could use the microphone to make the enemy AI weaker. And the last one I have in the notes here is SD Gundam, which was SD Gundam, I'm going to mess with these words, Gashapon Senshi. This had a voice recognition test feature, and it did not work very well. Hence my note of hey, this microphone is a pretty simple microphone. It was a simple condenser microphone, basically. So voice recognition, not its strong suit, to say the least. Now, when the NES comes out, that's the Nintendo Entertainment System, something that we're more familiar with here in the West, so in the United States and Canada, for example. The NES was designed differently. NES controllers were removable, unlike the hardwired Famicom controllers. And since the NES controller ports didn't support a microphone, the feature was completely removed in the international version. Now, I mentioned the FDS, or the Famicom Disk System, and I hadn't heard of this thing before. So the Famicom Disk System was released in 1986 by Nintendo, and it was a peripheral for the Famicom, and it did not come out for the NES in any way. It introduced rewritable floppy disks, allowing for cheaper game distribution, save features, and expanded game content. So the FDS was an add-on that connected to the Famicom via the RAM adapter, which plugged into the cartridge slot. It used custom 3-inch floppy disks called disk cards instead of cartridges. The disk cards could store more data than early Famicom cartridges and could be rewritten, allowing for game saves and even game rentals. Now, the FDS consisted of two main components: the disk drive, which was a small red and white unit that connected to the Famicom. It had a motorized disk loader and a belt-driven mechanism to read the floppy disk. I'd love to know how those belts held up over time. Likely all need to be replaced now. The RAM adapter, which plugged into the Famicom's cartridge slot, and this served as a bridge between the Famicom and the disk drive. It contained an extra bit of RAM, which came in at 32 kilobytes, as well as a custom sound chip for enhanced audio. Players would basically insert a disk card into the drive, and the system would load the game into RAM. Some larger games require disk flipping to access different game sections, and games could save progress directly on the disk itself, which was a major improvement over the password systems that many Famicom games use, because Famicom games could not be saved like we're used to now on, memory cards, hard drives, blah, 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 list goes on. So, why did Nintendo decide to make this rather hefty add-on? Cheaper manufacturing. Famicom cartridges were expensive to produce. Disc cards were cheaper and reusable. The Nintendo also liked the idea of the game saving capability. So before battery backed up cartridges, game saving was difficult. An FDS disc solved this problem. So if you're familiar with something like a Game Boy and people are like, I want to keep my save on Pokemon, you got to have somebody like a specialist go in there and like swap the battery while keeping the voltage up, whatever, blah blah blah, whole system, because the cartridge itself doesn't just the cartridge itself requires power to continue saving, and as Pokemon and the cartridges, of course, have aged, obviously the batteries have slowly but surely died, and people would have lost their save data potentially. I mentioned the sound chip. That's another thing here. So the RAM adapter contained an extra sound channel, allowing for richer music and sound effects. And players could also rewrite old discs with new games at kiosks called disc writers, similar to renting a game. Now, some notable disk system games. I'm just going to go through a couple of them. But The Legend of Zelda, 1986. It launched on the FDS before coming to the NES. And this version, of course, allowed players to save progress directly on the disc. Metroid, also in 1986. Also save files, so this is a big thing. The NES version of this Metroid game used a password system. And also Metroid, it was noted in my research that it had faster loading due to preloading into RAM. Now, I assume this is likely the case with many of these games. However, maybe Metroid specifically was slow at loading. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, Super Mario Bros. 2, Doki Doki Panic, Kid Icarus, Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, and Versus Excite Bike. Now, what's kind of cool about this Excite Bike version is that this version had a level editor that could save tracks, which is pretty cool. Now, unfortunately, this sort of system add-on did have some problems, and unfortunately it led to the decline, and it's kind of obscure now. So there were some durability problems. So the drive belt inside the FDS would wear out, making it unreliable. Funny enough, because if you look at many sort of like cassette players now from the 90s, maybe even the later 80s, a lot of the belts need to be replaced now. These belts were failing in the FDS like while the thing wasn't even that old. The discs themselves were actually fragile and could easily become corrupted. Cartridges also were actually faster. So this is kind of why I brought attention to that performance note. I'm not really sure why performance came up in my research specifically about Metroid, because cartridges are like loading from a solid state and are generally faster loading. Discs had noticeable loading delays, and like we've seen that as history has progressed, and we've started seeing loading screens on game consoles such as the PlayStation 1. Cartridge technology also had improved. So by the late 1980s, battery-backed cartridges allowed for saving progress. For example, in Zelda and Final Fantasy, cartridges also had larger memory capacities, limiting the need for disc flipping. Discs, of course, were rewritable, as we already mentioned, so it was easy to copy and illegally distribute games. And the Super Famicom, or the SNES as it's known in North America, was coming. And so Nintendo says, all right, the FDS is sort of obsolete at this point due to a number of reasons, like I already mentioned, and we're going to start shifting our focus to next gen.
So
now,
just a quick question then. So the FDS was only available in Japan then, right? There's no disk drive for the NES or Super, just the NES in North America ever in any capacity?
As far as I know, I looked up specifically if the FDS was available, and the FDS, as far as I could tell, was only available on the Famicom in Japan.
Which makes sense because it's called the Famicom Disk System.
Yeah,
which is inherently the Japanese hardware. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, I did look up something because I was a little bit confused because it says, The Legend of Zelda 1986. It was originally released as a Famicom Disk System game. And then I read that there was like another version of Zelda that had come out that people were more familiar with when they came Famicom. That was a cartridge. And that came out in 1994. And I was a little bit confused as to, do both versions like work with the microphone? Like what's going on with that? And so I did some research into that. So the Famicom Disk System version of The Legend of Zelda was released in 1986, as I mentioned, so February 21st. This was the original version of the game. It took advantage of the built-in save systems. It took advantage of the better sound effects and slightly, different, deeper, richer sound effects. I'm not audiophile, so I don't know all about that. And it could also use that microphone feature in controller number 2. Later on, 1994, so quite a number of years, Famicom cartridge version of this game comes out. The FDS was largely being phased out by the 1990s, so Nintendo decided to re-release Zelda on this standard Famicom cartridge version. Since the Famicom did not have battery backup saves, you couldn't save, right? But also, one of the other things is Pole's voice no longer reacted to the microphone since the cartridge version was based on the NES release. So the re-release, I guess you could say, the cartridge release of Zelda no longer used the microphone version. So it no longer used the microphone feature. So what I'm trying to get at here is like, as I was doing my research, there was a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, Zelda used the microphone. Then it would be like, no, it didn't. And then there were other things like the FDS really didn't use the microphone. And then it was like, well, it kind of used the microphone. It's like, well, hold up. Like, what's going on here? And that's why this whole bunch of stuff like kind of came up. And what's interesting about doing these fun facts is this, like, if I was like, really digging in and spending hours and hours and hours organizing this information, it would be like, kind of easy enough to sort all this stuff out. But it's crazy that like this stuff is like kind of so old and so obscure that there's just sort of like, people are writing quick blog posts and they'll just be like, yeah, like it just worked on Zelda. But it's like, okay, but like what version? Because earlier in the fun fact, I mentioned The Legend of Zelda 1986. But I also mentioned Zelda no Densetsu, the Hyrule Fantasy, and I believe those are the same games. So the big mess. This stuff is like, it's a little bit like if when you try to get down into the nitty gritty, it's like, who was really using this like microphone feature? You know what I mean? So I'm talking about like a niche thing from the past. And so I get like a whole bunch of different versions. And also people like with the Majora's Mask thing discover things. And so they write that like, hey, I've discovered that even though it says that it doesn't support the microphone, it does support the microphone. Yes, I understand Majora's Mask on the N64, but like people will discover things and then they'll write about that and it adds a bit of salt into the whole narrative. But that's basically it. That's my fun fact. Talking about the FDS, talking about the microphone feature on the Famicom.
It's funny you mentioned the manual still like talking about that one enemy that was like weak to like sound or something. I just have to wonder if there are people out there just yelling at their console that didn't have a microphone trying to do something.
I mean, that's fair, right?
Which we kind of did when we played PT at the end there. We couldn't figure out really how to beat the game. And we were just trying everything. We were looking up online, and people were saying, "Oh, it uses the mic on the on your headset that comes with your PS4 and stuff." And it never worked.
There was so much, man. That was like the return to the early days of gaming, where people did not know how to get through a game, and there was just so much misinformation online of people saying, "Oh, you have to do this, you do that. Oh, this is a feature in the game. Oh, this isn't a feature in the game." Like, it just brings you right back to going on to, like, Game Facts in the early 2000s. And people were like, you can play as Waluigi in Mario Kart 64 if you drive backwards over the finish line in every race in the hardest difficulty. And it's like, no, you made that up. It's not real. Because people just lie. But especially kids. Kids just lie all the time. They just make stuff up because they want somebody to like listen to what they're saying. And they're like, hey, if I say something that's like interesting to this person, whether it's true or not, they're paying attention to me.
There's the infamous like Lara Croft like nude mode.
Yeah.
Which was never a thing. And
nope.
But I remember just like people were saying it was real.
But they put it in the remaster.
Yeah.
What's crazy about like kids just doing that too is it's like sometimes, like I remember there was a specific rumor going around our school where it was like, if you get 100% on a save and then delete it and start a new save without resetting your console, it'll do something. I forget what game it was. There's something on the PS1 and fucking people were doing it. They're like, they'd play the whole damn thing and then be like, man, it's not like, inverted colors or whatever the hell the thing was. And it's like, God damn it. Like, even I didn't even have a console at that time. I would play a little bit of games on the PC, and even me, I was like, this sounds like bullshit. Like, this just sounds like total nonsense. Like, what the hell are you guys talking about over there?
As long as there's been any like social interactivity around games, there have always been the trolls. Like people trimming armor for free in RuneScape. If you drop your armor on the ground and hit Alt F4, it duplicates your stuff.
Oh
man, crazy.
I do recall lots of scams, lots of stuff in RuneScape, in Diablo 2, trade scams, because in Diablo 2, remember the famous one was there was only so many visual, like if it was plate armor, there was only so many like ways that plate armor looked. So it'd be like, oh, like I have, the plate armor 2, which was like a special one. And so you would like put that in the trade window and they would look at it and be like, okay, cool. And then you would try to like trade them for this really good deal. So they would be anticipating it. You'd close the trade window really quick and be like, oh, shoot, sorry, I accidentally closed it. And then, which was really easy to do accidentally, actually. So then you would go back in, but you would go to the vendor before you did this and bought an identical looking plate armor. This person would be anticipating this really good deal. You would like just throw the shitty plate armor in and then, of course, take off.
Put their stuff in with all the money, throw in the shitty plate, click agree right away before they even look. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, man, those days were, I mean, it was kind of awesome, kind of crazy just because everyone was doing it. But like nowadays it'd be like, man, you stole my like real life, $10 skin. You just, took something that's worth like an actual $15 from me or something. I guess people could buy items back then, but it was like not a part of the game. But
I think we need more kids getting scammed in games. What? I think we need to bring it back. What? Kids these days are getting too big for their britches. They need to be humbled.
I'm taking all your Fortnite skins, kids.
These kids don't know what it's like to be scammed by a stranger in an online game. We need to develop their character.
Oh my god.
I just want to say one thing. I did look up one slight clarification. So that Zelda no Densetsu, the Hyrule Fantasy, is The Legend of Zelda. the FTS version was originally just called that, and then when it went international, and the NES version was called The Legend of Zelda. Then when it was re-released on the Famicom and as a cartridge, The Legend of Zelda shows up. So basically, the No Densetsu version and just The Legend of Zelda are basically like synonyms in terms of that. That's why it kept getting jumbled whenever I looked it up. But that's it.
Yeah, I looked it up too. Google just says Hyrule Fantasy Zelda no Densetsu is just the original release name in Japan for The Legend of Zelda on NES.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Ryan.
So the top story for the week is probably the PlayStation State of Play, because we all three of us watched it.
The what?
It was the biggest news possible.
What happened?
PlayStation State of Play.
We got new Days Gone content.
That was a surprise, yeah. So we'll get into that. This list here and descriptions is brought to us by IGN. I'm just gonna kind of go down the list and pick out some notable things. First one here, and I think they ended the show on this one, was Saros, which is Housemarque's next game after Returnal. You guys remember Returnal?
I didn't play it, but a friend of mine is repeatedly demanding that I play it.
Oh wow, okay.
But
it is on PC now.
I mean, he's never missed with any game recommendations, so I do have to get to it. But my biggest selling feature for me on that game is that this main character is Raul Coley.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which was kind of fun to see.
He's awesome.
Coming out on PS5 in 2026. It looks a lot like Returnal. It looks to be a new game set on the planet of Carcosa that is under the threat of an ominous eclipse. Players will take on the role of Arjun Devraj, who is a powerful Soltari enforcer searching for answers on a lost off-world colony.
So
there will be a permanent progression system, and every death reshapes the world while offering new upgrades to overcome challenges. So very much like Returnal, it being a sequel, I guess. Or I guess if it's in the same universe, I guess it would be a direct sequel, but spiritual successor almost.
Could be a prequel.
But Matt, did that catch your interest at all? I don't know if you've ever really played a lot of Housemarque games. They did Resogun. Like, it's kind of funny to see them like where they started. With these very kind of basic, kind of arcadey kind of games. And now they're making like full on AAA,
Let's
games.
go. What a glow.
I honestly don't even recall this, like from the presentation, so didn't catch my eye. For sure.
It was just a cutscene. It was literally just a guy waking up on a beach and looking at an eclipse, and then a bunch of like
a weird eclipse, and like
a
bunch of circles.
weird eclipse, and then like this Vishnu demon monster comes out of the water, and then he just says some monologue. Well, he cocks a gun, and that's it.
Yeah, military man with
military
voice. Yeah. I'm gruff and ready to fight some stuff.
I got a beard and perfectly coiffed hair. Let's do this.
And then he mentions something like always coming back stronger, because that's what happens in the game. So
what is this? Some sort of rogue-like scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah. Title card.
Yeah.
I did like Returnal though. I've never beat it, but I have played it.
Yeah, it was fun.
And Returnal was pretty cool. So I mean, it's on my radar, I guess, for that reason. That's the only thing I remember about this game from the presentation. Like, I didn't remember the video. All I remember is that, like, oh yeah, the guys that made Returnal are making something.
Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. We finally got a release date. Now, Aaron, our friend Aaron, had been telling me for a long time that this was supposed to come out in 2024, and it never did. I don't remember where we saw that potential date, but it's now coming out August 28th, 2025. And there will also be an Ape Escape collaboration and potentially more crossovers yet to be revealed. So,
well, this was I texted you about this. So this is like a logistic thing, but I was watching the State of Play as I was working, so it was just on the second monitor, and it wasn't like paying full attention, obviously. And I heard them say like, now looking forward to 2026, something to that effect. And they introduced a game. It might have been Saros. It was something for 2026. And then I think this game showed up next, Metal Gear Solid Delta, and they hadn't shown the release date. And when they said that 2026 line, I thought they were introducing like a section of the show, because like 2 or 3 or whatever, like a few games had been already shown off that I believe were all 2025 games. And so I was like, oh, like it's kind of crazy for this like remaster that was, allegedly supposed to come out in 2024 is going to be delayed by, year and a half, 2 years to 2026. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not what's happening here. And like, I was like, no, like for sure, like they said this like 2026 line. I guess they only meant it for that one title, but the way they said it, I was like, this is definitely the 2026 section. Like they're just trying to show off something because, there wasn't really all that much for 2025. But I was wrong, but still.
Well, it is weird when like the narrator only came in for like certain moments.
Yeah.
It wasn't like she was speaking in between each game. So she would say something about the next game that would show up, but then it would jump in instantly into a new trailer. And so yeah, I could see why you would think like, oh, this is like 2026 section of the presentation, but
like, and obviously case. Like I was there, like, kind of, it was on my side monitor, so like I'm not paying full attention, but you're right, like the pacing with the narrator was just a little bit weird because of that.
Well, I was paying attention, and I got confused when you told me 2026 is the release date, and I was like, I don't remember hearing release date. I'm like, is your stream ahead of mine? And then like I like refreshed like the stream and everything. I checked to make sure I was live, and I wasn't. I was like, oh man, maybe I missed the release date. But then it came up at the end, and I was like, what? So, yeah, but this game looks pretty good. I don't know what are you gonna play this game, Tim? Did you ever play the Metal Gear games?
A long time ago. Like I did play the original Snake Eater, but I've never been like huge into Metal Gear. I was out of it for like a long time, and then I started playing Metal Gear 5, and I was really enjoying it, but I wasn't very far through it, and then I dropped it because I think like something else came out, like Red Dead or something. I can't remember what would have been that year, but anyway, something came out while I was playing Metal Gear 5. I
Fallout 4.
Was it Fallout 4? It
actually did it for me.
Yeah, I probably dropped it for Fallout, and I never went back to pick it back up. But I'm thinking Red Dead because I started to play Red Dead for like 2 weeks, and then Monster Hunter World came out, and I dropped Red Dead for Monster Hunter World, and then I didn't go back to Red Dead for like a year and a half.
Borderlands 4 also got a release date confirmation, September 23rd, 2025.
I don't know about you guys, but I thought this trailer looked faster.
In terms of the combat or something? Or
the combat looked like it's faster than what I generally experience in a Borderlands game, and I think that's good.
Kind of fast. They're kind of fast games. There's a lot happening.
There's a lot happening, but maybe it's just because I've been playing COD with Omni movement, but like Borderlands always kind of felt a bit slow to me, and like when I saw this, I was like, man, this feels like it's sped up. Maybe that's just my perception of it. However, I would like it to be faster. Like I feel like Borderlands would actually do well with like more COD movement, honestly.
With Omni movement.
A little bit, honestly. I feel like Omni movement would fit well here.
Or more like a Doom, right?
Like a Doom, yeah, stuff like that.
Running gun?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like anytime it's been so long since I've been in the like Borderlands sphere, but I feel like anytime I saw like a gameplay trailer for Borderlands, it was very fast paced, punchy, hitting like
the dubstep going
gameplay. Yeah. Like I mean, that's obviously curated for the sake of a trailer, but like it's still possible within game. It makes me think of like when this is old now, but when Krieg came out as a playable character for Borderlands 3, he's like a melee character because he's a bandit, and he has the like bandit axe, and a lot of his like his rage mode, like he is going all melee and stuff like that. And I just remember that gameplay being very Doom-like. Like you're getting up in enemies' faces, you're hacking people apart, you're throwing them around the map.
I just watched the trailer again here, Matt, and yeah, you're kind of right because like you're using like a grappling like laser beam kind of thing, and they're flying over characters, and they got like throwing axes, and they definitely cut it together to make it look a lot faster and more dynamic.
My experience with these games, I think maybe I experiment too much with the guns, so like I'm definitely like a lot slower than what like a lot of the kind of marketing materials would show.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really remember the marketing materials for like 3 and 4, or 3 and 2 at this point because it's been a number of years. But like, do you guys think it would do better if it was faster? Like if the actual gameplay was faster, do you think like would you be receptive to that, or do you think because like with Borderlands, I feel like they feel as though they need to keep it like identical or something.
Well,
like it's like it's a bajillion guns and whatever blah blah blah, which is cool. Like totally keep the milestones, the main things, but like to me it's like I think the gameplay needs to evolve a bit.
I think Borderlands' biggest drawback with 2, and I realized I said when Krieg came up for Borderlands 3, I meant Borderlands 2. I was an even older, deeper cut than I originally said. It's a game for millennials. Like the writing, the humor, it's it's not really for as much of a like younger modern audience, which is like, I don't know. Anytime I see people talking about Borderlands online, it's always people saying that it's like a dead series. Like they're like, I don't know why they're making Borderlands 4 because the market for it is gone. Like they're older and they're like potentially not playing video games anymore, but they're not the vast majority of the market anymore. And even though I'm a millennial and I still play video games, I have to agree that like I feel like the time for the writing style and the comedy style of Borderlands has kind of passed. Like, I don't think that it necessarily needs to evolve like gameplay wise. I think it needs to evolve like almost like culture wise. And like maybe it has. Full disclosure, I haven't watched much for Borderlands 4 and I didn't play Borderlands 3, but all I've heard from people who have played them is that they're pretty much the same. And people go, oh, well, you can't make all these like pop culture references in your game because it's going to age it. But it's like, so few games are played by a vast majority of people years after the time that they're relevant. Like people en masse do not go back and play Skyward Sword anymore. They just don't.
Right.
There are millions of Nintendo Wiis out there, but no huge groups of people in the market are going back and playing Skyward Sword anymore. They're just not. If anyone's playing Zelda, they're playing like the old OG, old classics, or they're playing Breath of the Wild, or they're playing Tears of the Kingdom. That's what people are playing for Zelda, or they're playing Echoes of Wisdom. It's okay for a game to exist in the time that it comes out and be relevant and be like funny or pop culture references like then we move on.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. Like not every game has to be this live service perpetual for 10, 20, 30 years that it stays forever relevant. Like it doesn't have to be like that. Like it's okay, you know? I loved Borderlands 2 when it came out. I feel like the writing style now would be like nails on a chalkboard.
It is. Because that's what 3 was. 3 was rough. And I remember enjoying the humor and the zaniness of Borderlands 1 and 2 when they came out. But Borderlands 3, I think, was a pretty big jump between 2 and 3, right? They did have the pre-sequel in there, but that, I mean...
True.
People play that even less than the mainline games.
Yep.
And it was written by a completely different team. And yeah, the humor is nails on a chalkboard. It's just everything is now cringy. And it also might just be, too... I think if Borderlands 3 was the first Borderlands we ever experienced, it might have been fine. But it just feels like I've seen all these jokes in your other games before. You know, and nothing is very new jokes or new humor. And so it just feels a little less novel, I guess, you know.
It just feels dated. And like it's okay to like have the writing style of your game evolve, I think. Especially if you're gonna like try to appeal to a modern audience, like a modern young audience, you have to recognize that like if 10 years, 15 years goes by, that young modern audience has a completely different sense of humor. Like you need only look at YouTube videos from 10 years ago and then YouTube videos now.
Man,
it's completely different. And to almost like ignore that is to say that you're like completely out of touch with your customer base. Because like obviously a game like Borderlands 2, I say 2 specifically because that's when they like really leaned into the like LOL XD random kind of vibes. Is obviously a game for like teenagers and like young 20-year-olds. Like it's that core, like that mindset and like what people find funny and stuff like that. And 15-year-olds then, like I said, they're completely different sense of humor wise from 15-year-olds now.
And we've moved on too. Like obviously we exist in this world and like we don't keep, like you said, like it's nails on a chalkboard. Like we don't keep laughing at the same stuff. And like if we do, you know, it might almost just because like we remember those times or we remember the specific jokes. Like we remember if we're going back for a replay of Borderlands 2, it's almost like we're laughing in nostalgia where we're like, oh, haha, like, you know, I remember that.
Yeah. And if they're going to make a callback, like that's obviously relevant to the audience that played it back then. Right. But like you have to write the callback well in a way that people who played it would go like, oh, I get it. But then also in a way that modern players wouldn't be like, completely alienated,
like, right? It's like
what the hell was that about? Yeah, so it's tough. It's a hard line to walk, but like, you know, if that's the writing style you're going to go for, I think you have to be willing to adapt, or you have to be ready for that criticism.
Next game on the list here is Onimusha: Way of the Sword. They got a new trailer.
New Onimusha game for the first time in a long time.
Won't be released until 2026. There you go, Matt. That might have been the one they were talking about.
Likely, actually. This game, like, Adriano's going nuts for this game because him and his brother, as far as I understand it, like played this series quite a bit.
I remember him talking to me about it for like almost since I've known him, I think.
Oh yeah, he's brought it up. Like I've never really. I think I played one Onimusha game once, not all the way through, just sort of in passing. And like I've talked to Adriano about it here and there, and like he's definitely like pretty knowledgeable about it and stuff like that. It's kind of cool to see like an old series get revived, especially on like PlayStation when we've talked about PlayStation kind of like dropping or alienating its own kind of series like Resistance, Jack and Daxter, stuff like that, where they just kind of get like abandoned on like a PS3 or something, and then they're just gone.
Yeah. They also announced, I think, Onimusha 2 remake, or not remake, remaster, and they updated the controls and other things like that, and bringing it to modern consoles. So that's cool. I guess the first one was already kind of remastered in a similar way. Tides of Annihilation. Now, the only thing I really remember about this one is I'm pretty sure the voice actor in it is the same as Shadowheart, who is Jennifer English.
Yep.
That's all I know.
What's the game?
Tides of Annihilation.
It looks like, just visually, it kind of looks like it's an Elden Ring kind of thing, like a Soulsborne,
definitely looks inspired by it.
Yeah, and it's in what I would say is our world, because you can see the big London Eye, which I believe is the name of their big Ferris wheel in London, but it's in like ruins, like it's all like apocalyptic, and there's like a bunch of dead soldiers in armor and stuff, and so like the game definitely looks like it's going to be sort of Souls-like in that way.
The main character is Jennifer English, or just the narration?
I don't know. Whatever that voice is at the start, it definitely sounds like Shadowheart.
But the protagonist like walks. I don't know about the voice actor, but the protagonist in the story like walks up to like a pile of dead soldiers, kind of like reaches in to a sword that's like sticking out of them. London Eye's in the background. It's all apocalyptic, and then the gameplay kind of proceeds from there. So it's very like Elden Ring in our world ish is the impression that I took away from it.
Oh, this is interesting. So it is Jennifer English starring her, but her real life girlfriend is playing the opposite, the antagonist.
Oh, that's cool.
Apparently, wait, didn't she get together with her on
Onimusha?
Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, right.
I don't.
Who's her girlfriend?
I definitely don't know her relationship stuff.
Aliona Baranova.
This is now a girlfriend watch podcast.
Did she voice she didn't voice
again, I should stop using Bing. It's not producing any results.
Well, I believe the person we're talking about is the voice of Gwendolyn, and it says in the text here on the IGN article that you'll be able to call in the Knights of the Round Table to help her in combat. You'll also be fighting bosses as big as skyscrapers.
She was the performance director, and she might have done some side characters.
Yeah, it says Karina and Zeph for Baldur's Gate 3.
Karina.
If I'm reading this correctly. But anyway, yeah, I think they met on Baldur's Gate, so that's kind of cool that they're doing another.
She voiced
game.
Squirrels.
Oh, okay.
The squirrels that you can talk to if you speak with animals.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not too. I don't know. The game looks cool, I guess, but it kind of also falls into that realm of looks like every kind of other crazy fantasy game a bit.
I mean, people are saying reminiscent of Bayonetta and like Devil May Cry. So like super fast paced hack and slash combo type of game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, I'm all for more of that genre. I feel like something that it's one of those things where like when you're talking about Devil May Cry and you're talking about Bayonetta, these are games that are going 100 the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just take the intensity and crank it. They have so much style to them. It's so much intensity constantly that it's like, if that's what your kind of inspiration is, if that's what you're going up against, there has to be that conversation of like, do we try to match that, or do we try to take it in a different direction? But like, kind of half the point of those games is how flashy and nonstop they are, and how over the top, bombastic, the events of the game, the gameplay, the characters. The whole point is that it's extra through all the way through, right? So
Yeah.
There are moments, I just kind of like skimmed through the trailer, and there are moments where I'm getting that the impression that I remembered, where it looks a little bit like Elden Ring, and it's mostly in the boss fights because they're so kind of big and grand, and there's kind of like it's not necessarily medieval feel, or not necessarily medieval, but it's sort of like a medieval feeling, almost like a Remnant kind of feeling to the bosses.
fantasy.
Yeah, that'd be right. So it feels like it's Elden Ring, and it even looks, because they're like, big dodges from big attacks from these big bosses. But then there's a couple of scenes where they're sort of fighting what I would assume is the more common enemies, and that almost looks like you're saying, like a Bayonetta, where it's like super fast, combo based, whatever. It's kind of a big big mashup in my head anyway of all those experiences kind of put together. To me though, like I kind of with Ryan a little bit, where like this game doesn't super stand out to me personally.
It looks like a video game.
Well, yeah,
it just looks like it has a lot going on, but it just looks like a generic video game.
Well, to me, it reminds me almost, if I'm thinking like of something really recent, it reminds me of Stellar Blade.
Yeah. It looks like the game that is being played in the background of the family-based sitcom that the teenage son is playing in the living room in the background. No, that's doing it a disservice. It looks
higher
like
quality
enough.
than that. Yeah.
It's not that generic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks fine.
Yeah. Next on the list, Days Gone Remastered.
Why'd you say that with a poor tone?
Well, I was gonna try to make some joke about you getting your leathers out or something.
Getting my leathers out.
Your vest out, or
your iconic biker gear that you're always wearing.
Oh, my cut. I got my
your
cut out.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for.
You got all your badges all sewn onto your jacket.
Yeah,
your patches.
You do have a beard.
A lot of people have beards.
You do have a bike,
but you have one.
I have a beard, yeah. Tim has a beard, too. You have a beard, Ryan. What's going on here?
He's a man.
He had a beard.
But yeah, this game's getting remastered for PS5, riding its way to PS5 on April 25th, 2025.
Fucking IGN.
It'll bring with it VRR and PS5 Pro support, permadeath and speedrun modes, an enhanced photo mode, Matt. There you go. Additional accessibility features, and even a horde assault mode that will have Deacon St. John taking on even more freakers than usual.
What an incredible protagonist name, I would like to say. I love the name Deacon St. John, mostly because I know that they're self-aware, because there's a side character that like calls you on the radio and they're like, "The hell's your name again?" He's like, "Oh, my name's Deacon St. John." He's like, "Jesus." Like, that's one hell of a name.
Just laughs at him, "You idiot."
Pretty well.
So you can upgrade to this if you already have the PS4 version. You can get the upgrade for $10. This game is already on PC, so I don't know if they said the PC version is going to be updated with the new features or not.
It's not in this article, and it wasn't mentioned in the state of play, but I looked it up, and it is coming. These features and that are coming as a DLC to the PC version.
I find it interesting that they're supporting this game because they didn't want a sequel.
Very strange, right?
And
very
it's
strange.
Interesting that they're still putting time and effort into bringing it to more platforms. I mean, obviously that can give you more revenue, but it's interesting that they're doing this and then showing it off at a state of play, and very, very strange.
I believe it's Steam Deck certified as well. I believe that the Days Gone PC version is Deck certified.
There you go. You gonna play it again, Matt?
I have it. Hell yeah.
So
I think Tim
would you actually play it again?
Yeah, likely. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Wait. Why again? Wait. Why was that said in a negative way?
No judgment. We don't judge people on their gaming choices on this podcast, right?
Oh
what
my!
did I do?
Yeah, wait. I think you purchased this for my birthday the one year.
Oh no,
Days Gone.
Sorry.
Wait, you're sorry? What's going on here?
Actually, what's that game I got you, Matt? Did you ever play that one? Wet. I got you Wet.
Oh,
you got Matt Wet for his birthday?
I got Matt Wet for his birthday.
Well, you got me like a Fallout backpack.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, you should check inside. And I was like, what's in here? And it was a fucking PS3 case, and it was fucking wet.
Yeah.
And I'd made fun of Wet for some reason, like about 1,000 times that year.
Yeah.
Potentially even on the podcast, because I played Wet, and it was fucking bad back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Also, indeed, Days Gone is Steam Deck certified.
There you go.
Hang on. As of May 11th, my birthday's the next day.
Oh man.
It's fate. It's fate, boys.
WWE 2K25 spotlights its social multiplayer wrestling hub, The Island.
Oh man, the PlayStation home of WWE.
Players will be able to make their custom wrestlers into this, take their custom wrestlers into this new world and explore, take on challenges, develop storylines, and much more. Kind of wild that, like, I guess the WWE games are popular enough to like try something like this, like a social hub area for all the people who play. You know,
WWE is a big, like, whatever you want to call it, entertainment, sport, whatever. Call it whatever you'd like. It's a big thing. It's on Netflix now. You know, it's a, like, I know that like people kind of think it went away in the, like, you know, what are the late 90s, early 2000s maybe, but it did not go away.
Mm-hmm. Monster Hunter Wilds to add Mizutsune?
Mizutsune?
Yep. In its first big update. It'll come in spring. I guess that's all they announced. So
yeah, it is. Well, they showed off showed a launch trailer. I don't like, they put that on their YouTube channel. I don't know if they had that in the state of play. But at the end of that launch trailer, they showed little cinematic teaser for Mizutsune, and then said it was going to be part of the spring update 2025. Which is so funny that they like do that for every Monster Hunter game now. Every time the game's not even out yet, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, after this game's out, but like a couple of months down the line, also another free title update with more content."
Is that more incentive to buy the base game then, I guess?
I guess so. But like, they've done it. They did it with Rise. They did it with World. I think they might have even potentially done it for Generation, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's like they keep doing like so much to show off like all of the features and stuff. There's just so much marketing for Wilds. They're dropping tons of trailers. They're doing lots of developer showcases and like community manager live streams where they like talk about interviews and stuff that the devs are doing in Japan and like translating them for, you know, Western audiences and stuff like that. Like, they're just doing so much to like keep the community apprised of like development and what's going on. And every time there's like any little get together or showcase or interview or anything that happens, like there's always some new detail that comes out. Like, they're just so clearly excited to like talk about their game. They don't like want to keep too many secrets because they're just constantly like dropping more and more and more information. And then being like, you know, and then doing this like, oh, by the way, after the game's out, we're doing the same thing that we've done for the bunch of last games, and we're, you know, doing the title updates every couple of months where it's got a new sort of flagship monster of that title update. It's going to get added, and then we're going to do event quests, and those event quests are going to have, you know, unique armor cosmetics that you get from doing these event quests, and it's just them confirming that they're doing the same thing that they've always done for all these big releases and stuff. I just find it really funny when a game's not even out yet and the devs are like, oh yeah, here's all the like free updates that are coming out after the game. Like, here's our roadmap for the first couple of months.
That's a day one game for you, I imagine.
Oh yeah, big time.
Got it pre-ordered? Some pre-order bonuses
like
going?
Technically, I bought like I don't know if it's like a pre-order thing, but I bought a code from a website that was pre-selling it for like $5 cheaper.
Okay.
So
you're doing PC then. I was going to ask you what platform you were going to go toward right away.
Yeah. But it's crossplay on day one. The open beta test I did last weekend was also, I think, the first one that was also crossplay. The performance was also way better too. I actually don't know if I told you guys that. Like, when I tried to do the first open beta test on the PS5, it was like fine. There were issues with it, but it was like an old build. It's like 10 months old or something. But then they also released it a couple of days later for like the PC and Xbox, and it was like unplayable on my PC. Like, the performance was so bad.
Wow.
But then with this one, it wasn't exactly like a 1-to-1 comparison because I upgraded my PC in that time, got the new CPU in there, and this open beta test was like I think minimum it was like 85 FPS. Like, it was crazy the performance difference. And they said allegedly it was the same build of the beta.
Hmm.
So I don't know what they did, if they changed anything, or if it was just my hardware upgrade. But yeah,
hardware upgrade, and like maybe like if it recompiled shaders, maybe like something corrupt got cleaned up or something. Like I've had that a couple times. Like recompiling shaders like does seem to help quite a bit.
Another thing I tried to do actually was install the open beta test on my Steam Deck, which did not work. It is very clearly not designed for the Steam Deck. I had to like fuss with some settings and things. It's the only thing I've ever seen where the game like booted up, like the menu was, you could hear the game running and menus were popping up, but the screen otherwise was black. Like there was no like background behind the menus. Like the menus were rendering, but the game's graphics weren't, which I don't know if that's like a shader thing or what, but when I would go into the menus and I would adjust settings like the resolution, then all the visuals would kick in.
Oh.
So, and then when I actually like got into a game, I tried going into a regular lobby. It took a long time to connect, and then when I was actually in, it was running like 4 FPS. It was super bad, completely unplayable, like super input delay and all this stuff, and not like really any better if I went into a private lobby either. So it's like it wasn't just the network connection either. It was just like the game is not designed to work on the Steam Deck at all, which I don't imagine that they would be trying to get this open beta test to work on the Steam Deck. But what was really nice, which for somehow I didn't even know was a feature of the Steam Deck, streaming from your computer to the Steam Deck, and you're on the same Wi-Fi. I don't know why I didn't know that was a feature, but I didn't. And then I saw that you could do that, and then I played my PC install to my Steam Deck for the open beta test, and it was like immaculate. And I was like, this really more of just like a, handshakes all around for Steam and Valve for having a good feature in their product. But like, that was cool. So that was almost like a first taste of what that game might potentially be on the Steam Deck. Probably not. It's not going to be running the game at like 60 FPS on the Steam Deck. There's no way. But
likely not. No.
But the potential is there. It's there.
The hope is there at the very least.
You got a taste. You can stream it anyway if you really want to.
All right, moving on to Supermassive Games Directive 8020 coming to PS5 this October. So if you don't know who Supermassive is, they did Until Dawn and The Quarry, and this is their new game. Basically like a sci-fi kind of Dead Space, kind of Alien, kind of dealing with horrible things in space,
Yeah, this isn't the first time that they've shown this. I remember this.
PlayStation really?
PlayStation had a trailer 5 months ago too. I remember seeing this before.
This is the first time I remember it.
IGN had an exclusive death scene gameplay clip 3 months ago.
Do you guys remember the Matthew McConaughey game?
Yep.
What happened to that? What was that?
In concept only. Like, I remember there was a Matthew McConaughey game.
What was that at? The Game Awards or something?
Game Awards, not the previous ones. The ones the year before.
Yeah. The Matthew McConaughey game.
What happened to that? What happened to all those games that got announced back then? Did they come out?
They're all in dev hell right now. Everyone's fighting in those offices.
Are they just buried in Steam somewhere?
Actually, it is a bit of a problem when like these games are likely or are possibly like 6 or 7 years out. And it's like, like, remember you saw trailers like once every 3 years? Like, I don't. I do not remember that I saw a trailer once every 3 years.
Yeah.
You skipped some bangers here, Ryan. You skipped.
Well, call about the bangers.
You skipped. This was kind of like a nostalgia sleeper hit for me. Shinobi Art of Vengeance.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because I used to play all the old Shinobi games on my PC, and as a part of like the Sega collections that were re-released, like old Genesis, etc. games, but on the PC. And I used to play Shinobi back in the day. I never played I believe it was fully 3D Shinobi game on PS2, but this is like a callback, I guess, to the old 2D side-scrolling one. So this is kind of cool. And also, this is a game that you and I were talking about while it was getting released, Ryan, was MindsEye.
What?
Yeah, MindsEye. I remember I was saying how, like, you were saying how, like, the game looked, like, really generic. And I was saying how, like, the protagonist, like, to me, was, like, pretty generic, but, like, the gameplay looked like it was going to be kind of like The Division, or at least it gave me Division vibes, and so it looked like it was going to be fun to play.
I said it looked like modern-day Cyberpunk.
Yes, that's what you said. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this, Tim, but it It might just be the lighting. The lighting kind of makes it look like Cyberpunk or something.
For which one?
Well,
But
and
I
the
get-
technology, MindsEye, in one word.
Or I guess it is. Yeah, I guess it's somewhat of a near future Cyberpunk looking game. The driving looks very Cyberpunk. That car looks like a Tesla, but I don't think it is.
There's like a Jeep at one point, like a yellow Jeep, I believe, at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of those games where it's like I feel like I don't remember literally any of the story. I only remember the game the gameplay being shown, and like that was kind of like, or it kind of gives me those Division vibes where I feel like it's just going to be fun to play.
Oh, it looks fun, yeah, for sure. The protagonist,
It looks so generic to me.
Yeah, like that's
Like,
what I mean. Like it's so forgettable.
generic. Yeah. This is just bargain bin
guns
game
in the
to me.
city, driving cars in the city.
Even the like explosion effects look really dated.
Canned explosion.
Every shot has a blowing up car. Every single one. Every single shot has an
Because it's
explosion.
high octane gaming, man.
It looks like the kind of game, and I saw a phrase like a couple of days ago, maybe, or a week ago, maybe, or someone was like, they would call that game a cousin game. Like nobody you knew had this game, but then you'd go to your like aunt and uncle's house for an afternoon for them to like watch you while your parents went to the show or something. And it's the game that your cousin would have, and you would only ever play it at your cousin's house, and you'd never see it otherwise. But you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that game from 10 years ago. I played it with my cousin.
Yeah.
Every time you show up to your cousin's just a higher level until he's just like absolutely mastered it, just like completionist, gold stars across the board. Like it wasn't a side part of your cousin's collection. It was a mainstay.
Some of those cousin games, though, man, I love those. Like Croc 2, Legend of the Gobos. That's the cousin game. I fucking loved that game as a kid.
So that was pretty much all the notable ones, I think. One kind of thing that
I just want to say one thing is you called it a bargain bin game, Tim.
Yeah.
But then you're like, I love cousin games, so you love MindsEye. Like you're fully in on the
I don't
summer
necessarily
2025.
love cousins games. I said some of those games I love. Like Croc 2, Legend of the Gobos on the PS1 and PC.
That's random, especially for back then.
Yep.
I was shocked to see a Digimon game. That I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I actually saw people talking about that. And they were pretty big Digimon fans that were like, finally, something that looks like I can sink my teeth into. Because I guess some Digimon games have been dropping the ball recently. I've been out of the Digimon sphere since 2001.
I didn't even know anything like Digimon was still being made.
Yeah, it's tons of it. There's still shows. There's still anime.
So this is called Digimon Storytime Stranger, because of course it is. A new JRPG where players will switch between both the human world and the digital world,
So every
collecting
game.
and training Digimon along the way to quote,
So every game.
stop the collapse of the world and change fate itself.
Where's the there was a post that I saw on Blue Sky. When was that? That was like so kind of relevant to this right now. Where is it? If I can find it. Oh God, where is it? Can't find it. Anyway, continue. I'll
Well, that's
if
it.
I can
That was
find it,
the state of the play. I did mention to Matt that I think Xbox had that video where they announced like 4 games, and Sony had the state of play where they announced like a dozen or more games, and the Xbox one was better. Quality over quantity, I think.
Well, this feels like, I mean, like Xbox had a lull for a while. This feels like this might be Sony's lull.
Yeah, because there wasn't a lot of first-party games except for Days Gone, which was just a remaster
Right.
or a PS5 version.
They
And,
opened with Monster Hunter, even though we mentioned it later. Like they actually opened with Monster Hunter, which is not their game.
No, and then Saros is theirs.
Right.
Okay, I found it. So, in relation to just your comment where you're like, it's called, story time
Yeah,
survival or whatever.
Stranger.
Of course it is. Stranger, sorry. Post from John Boyce, I think he is. He's like a cartoonist online. But anyway, he's like in a post that was like, there are probably some amazing video games that I would have loved that I never played solely because they have a name like Rainblade Chronicles of Knife Saga.
yeah.
And every one of those, like what you think would be an I is a Y.
Aww.
It is weird. I've noticed that video game titles sound like video game titles. They don't sound like movies. you know, but they all have a very video game feel to them. And I don't know what that is.
You
Like
know what's
Tides of Annihilation. I don't know if
Yeah,
you'd
of
see a movie
course.
called Tides of Annihilation.
Oh, I could see that for
Really?
sure. Yeah, it's like, but you know what's funny though is that like games that get made, like and have any semblance of a marketing budget, right? Like obviously there's hundreds of thousands of games out there that just have like a name that's like Poop Fighter, that's just like a nothing name. Um, but games that actually like get made that have these names and we're like, okay, that sounds like a legitimate name. That sounds like a video game, a name that a video game would have. But then you see like fake video game names. Like the thing that comes to mind for me is like when I used to work at the game store and we had these like shelves and like holders for game cases that you could like put vertically. And obviously for the purposes of like the picture on the box, they would have these fake Xbox 360
Yeah,
and
right,
PS3 and all these boxes like in the actual stand.
Mhm.
And they had names on all of these cases, on the sides of all these cases, but they were all literally like nothing names. They were like Fight Shooter 6 and Destruction of Atlas. Even that's actually probably too much.
Yeah.
Like it was just Destruction 5 or
Mhm.
like Car Destroyer. Like just the most generic, like barely like it's they ask a 5-year-old to come up with a name for a video game and that's what they would give you, right?
Yeah.
Like so it's funny how there's this like naming scheme for video games that we'll hear and we're like, yeah, that sounds like the name of a video game. Like Tides of Annihilation. Sure,
Mhm.
sounds semi cool enough. Don't know what it's in relation to, but sure, it's a video game name. But then we have like the step beyond that where it's like going for that vibe, but even more generic.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. There you go. State of play. A lot of games. A lot of games.
State of
Which one
Play.
is your favorite?
Home
Which
of
one
Car
are you
Destroyer
most
5.
looking forward to?
Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is a remake, of a freaking 20-year-old game.
Pretty
or
old
whatever-
game
whenever
now.
that came out.
Hey, that's okay. That passes my criteria for being
And it's one of my favorite games of all time, the original. And so I'm happy that this is just like a skin refresh. I don't really want them to do a complete remake, that they're just like updating all the graphics and maybe some other quality of life things that have kind of changed along the way. So
to me it's really weird to like pick a random title from like the middle of the series to remaster.
here's my theory. They might be going chronologically in the story,
Yeah.
possibly.
It's the thing that also leaves like a bad taste in my mouth is obviously like Kojima's not involved with it.
Mm,
So it almost feels like they're just like
cashing in.
trying to resurrect like zombify Metal Gear Solid, which hurts because like it's a lot of people's favorite series because of that just Kojima wackiness and just like the cool ideas that he had for like video game mechanics.
You know what, too? Since they're just doing like a reskin of it and not doing anything deeper than that, the first and second games are very old in terms of the character movement. The third one is definitely the most modern that still holds up to like modern titles. The only thing that they fixed, I think, was you can't crouch in the original. You crouch, but then as soon as you press forward, he crawls. He goes
Right.
prone and crawls. But I think in this new one, you might be able to crouch walk.
It's a
Which
video
was
game
not
staple
in-
these days.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got one last story here before we turn it over to what we're playing. Sony turned down the Order 1886 sequel due to critical reception, developers say. This is from IGN as well. Andrea Pacino told MinMax that Ready at Dawn pitched a quote incredible sequel and would have signed its life away to make it purely for the sake of the players. The Order 1886 arrived in 2015 as an action game about werewolves in Victorian London, but despite being among the best-looking games of the generation, it received middling reviews from critics. Quote, "It would have been an incredible sequel, I can tell you that for a fact," Pacino said, though admitted he couldn't say much because he doesn't own the franchise rights. "We pitched the sequel to Sony regardless of the critical reception, and in a way, it's better that they passed because if we thought we were going to be screwed before, with the sequel, we would have signed our life away." Pacino said Ready at Dawn had a difficult relationship with Sony while making the original game, and ultimately had to cut a myriad elements in order to hit deadlines and eventually release the Order 1886 before it was ready. The graphical fidelity of the game's initial pitches and reveal led Sony to expect the same quality of builds to be submitted at certain milestones in its development, Pacino said, but payments were withheld when Ready at Dawn had to prioritize other things and temporarily couldn't hit the same graphical standards. While Pacino said this is an industry standard for third-party publishers, it led to a frustrating relationship between Ready at Dawn and Sony. The team was ready to sign up for a worse situation to make the Order 1886 sequel regardless. So, pretty sad because I do actually like the game. I don't think it's as bad as people said it was. Now, I haven't played it recently. I did play it when it came out. There's definitely issues, but I just felt like it's like everyone points to Assassin's Creed as the example of the first game was kind of garbage, but there was potential there. There was a universe that was being built. There was stuff that was appealing about it over the bad gameplay. And in the sequel, like Assassin's Creed 2 is still a lot of people's favorite of the franchise or whatever. I just feel like the Order could have done that as well, and it's kind of sad that they never gave it that chance.
I think we need more alternate retellings of classic stories.
Yeah.
Like it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that was like the retelling of the like Knights of the Round Table story.
Well, they all have the names, don't they?
And they all have the fucking names. And I was like, oh, what? That's a weird coincidence. But it's different. Like it's entirely different universe. It's an entirely different part of like point in time. And it's just cool. It's like alternate history stuff, right?
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, that's fun.
Similar vibe. And like the biggest, so I didn't play that game until like 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I think honestly that it still held up. Mechanically,
still looks good.
Visually amazing.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous game.
Yeah.
But the only real criticism that I ever saw for that game was that it was too short. People didn't want to spend that much money on a like narrative, like a pretty linear narrative game that was like 6 to 8 hours long. And I think that it's totally fine. Like for me, it was like the perfect length. It wasn't any longer than it needed to be. And it didn't like beat you over the head with any particular story element. There was kind of one point, my only like real gripe with the story is they are sort of perpetuating this like these two characters have like a romantic history and it's not really relevant to the story. So they're kind of pushing it in your face a little bit, but then they just sort of like acknowledge it and move on. So it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Which to me feels like they're setting up something to be explored later, potentially in like a sequel or whatever. But of course we never got that. But yeah, I don't think that I would love to see a sequel for it. I can't imagine it would be very commercially successful, but I thought that was a really cool game. And I remember seeing, I think before the PS4 came out, there was like a tech demo for it. There was like at E3 one year, you could like on the game show floor, you could play like a demo version of that game. And I remember people being blown away by the gas gun where like the primary fire was like you'd shoot this sort of like cloud of gas.
Oh yeah.
And then the alternate fire was you'd fire a projectile that would ignite it all. And there's that one like very scripted looking moment where they're like fighting some people and like they're in the streets and the people are in the building or whatever. And they see all these people run in the building and he fires the like gas gun into it and then swaps to like ignite mode and fires the ignition projectile. And it like kind of blows out all the second floor of this building. And people were like, whoa, like what a gimmick and stuff. And they thought it was like so cool. And then the game comes out and everybody hated it because it was short. But it was like one of those like short and sweet things. To be fair, I did get it heavily discounted because I played it so
it was like $5 on sale
later.
at certain points.
Yeah. So I don't know how much I paid for it, but I did play it many years after the fact. So there is that to consider. Would I have paid like a full $60, $70, $80 for it when it came out? Maybe not, but it was probably the game that I would buy if I had known kind of about what it was on its like first sale. Maybe I would say first discount price.
I remember another issue people had, and it kind of seems ahead of its time at this point. It was locked in cinematic widescreen.
With
it
the
had
black bars.
letterbox on it, and people didn't like that. But now everyone's playing, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are playing on ultra widescreen displays, and they want games to support ultra wide monitors and stuff.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaws also is able to be played in a cinematic widescreen format. I feel like it was just ahead of their time kind of situations. I do believe they updated it so you could play it full screen, if I remember correctly. I don't know if you remember when you played, Tim, what it was looking like.
I think cutscenes were letterboxed, but then the
Okay,
gameplay was full screen. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and I think it almost had like a transition, like it would do like the letterboxing would go away. I think maybe it would like slide off. I might be wrong.
No, at launch, it was always there. Like you were just always fighting in that kind of situation. Maybe it wasn't handled as well as it probably could be today because like they were one of the first to do it like that. So yeah. But what sucks is what I'm reading here is it sounded like they showed off that demo you were talking about.
Yep.
And Sony was really excited and then wanted to see more of it. And because they weren't seeing it, because it would obviously take a lot of time to get a game looking that good.
Yeah.
And they started putting like restrictions on them and stuff. And it's almost like Sony made the game bad. You know what I mean? When they should have just given them more room to work it out and stuff.
Yeah. Support your studios instead of restricting them.
Who'd have thunk, right?
Yeah. It's like what Warhorse and Larian and all of these like European studios are trying to tell people like in the gaming industry constantly is like, if you give your studios the resources and the time that they need to make the product, lo and behold, the end product looks pretty good and it turns out the people like it and it sells well. Like who would have thought? But that's not, no, we're not min-maxing profits. That's too much cost and not enough profit margin at the end.
That's a thing you mentioned about Order 1886, Tim, the demo. I think you and I played that at Fan Expo, because I definitely played it at Fan Expo years ago, because it was in the booth, the PlayStation booth, because we played...
We may have.
Black Flag, and then we played Order 1886, because I remember messing around with the gas gun.
I remember playing Assassin's Creed. Maybe I watched over your shoulder while you played Order 1886.
Maybe, because I know there was
2013.
lines.
I remember that.
God.
No, that's a long time. Jesus.
It's
a long time.
It's so weird that like the order came out in 2015. That time period feels like so recent in my memory, but it was 10 years ago. And I guess it was just like I don't know, I wouldn't say pivotal moment in my life, but like I was in college and like a lot of games were like kind of great and coming out at that time. And so I just remember that very distinctly. But yeah, like, 10 years ago, god damn.
Yeah, like 2008 to 2015 was like, there's a lot of really big games that came out in that time period that a lot of people will remember very fondly and were pretty, like you say, pivotal, but very like almost instrumental in the modern day state of the industry, I would say.
Well, there's also like there's also like COVID was really like a time sink as well. Like at least to me,
it was
like,
5 years ago. That's even wild.
Well, what's crazy about that is like if you look at COVID as like a 5-year block and you take that away, things that are like, man, that was 10 years ago. It's like, it's kind of like 5 plus COVID though. And that's kind of what it feels like, right? Like it kind of feels like 5. Cause it's just like, oh, COVID, okay, stay in the house. And like, that was it. Right. Like, I mean, at least for me, it was like, well, I guess I'm sitting here. And then that was kind of it.
That first March, like when the lockdown like initially happened, that March lasted forever. I don't know about you guys, but that March felt long.
It was pretty bad.
when they were originally saying like, if we're smart about this and, we can get this under control, like we might only have to be in the lockdowns until like June.
Yeah.
And I remember Kayla being like, oh my God, until June? That's so long. And like thinking that was insane. And then like 4 years later.
Yeah. All right. That's it for the stories. Moving on to what we're playing. Matt.
Me?
What's Tim playing?
What? Oh, what's Tim playing? Oh, Jesus.
No,
what am I playing?
What are you playing?
You're playing Monster Hunter and the Order 1886. No, incorrect completely.
One's not out, and the other one is 10 years old.
They should bring the Order to PC.
Actually, I do agree with that.
I
yeah.
did play it on PC, I think.
No.
Is it not? I must not have done. No, did I play it on console?
I bet you a Panzo right now it's not on PC.
Oh my God, you guys this is a live and immediately verifiable Panzo bet.
Yeah, no, it's not PS4 only. Okay. Huh, that's wild because it wasn't that long ago that I played it. I swear I played it on PC, but I guess I didn't.
Did you play it on a PS5?
No. The PS5, was it out yet? Must have been.
The PS5's been out for like 5 years.
Yeah, we got our like PS5 like launch was in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And I don't mean dead center in the middle. I mean like during
November 21?
November 2020.
2020. First
It
year.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, time for a PS6. Even though it feels like the PS5 barely got going.
We're getting close, though. It is getting close.
But again, it barely feels like the PS5 has gotten going.
The PS5 Pro just came out, too.
All because of COVID.
Actually, like largely likely due to COVID.
So, Matt, what are you playing?
I'm playing Monster Hunter and the Orchard. No.
No. Playing porno games on Steam.
No, I've been playing Stalker 2, which I'll be doing for the next 30,000 years. Because the game is fucking long. But
long and hard.
I've started. Fuck. I've started like hitting kind of like areas that are kind of famous in the zone in real life. So I recently just did a mission, I think about a week or two ago, because it's been a few weeks since we've recorded. I recently did a mission at the Duga, or I believe that's how you pronounce it, the Duga, or otherwise known as the Russian woodpecker, which is sort of like this big grid radar array that would like, wait, what?
I'm just making noises.
Oh, okay.
He's just singing.
Yeah, so the Russian woodpecker, I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
That's it.
Famous
That's all I
areas.
played. You guys can take it away.
The grid.
It's like a big like grid like radar thing that would like it was responsible for disrupting a lot of like global communications because it would like randomly make like ticking noises across the globe. In like the radar would be like tick, 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 tick. And like, I don't fully understand radar and stuff, but it was like a big known thing. Well, in this game, it was used and is being used for some supernatural shit. And there was a huge gunfight there and it took me forever to beat that, which was pretty crazy. And then I've like since moved on since I have like played it over the last couple of weeks. And I've now reached the point where I'm actually in what at least the loading screens are saying is the main city, which is Rostock. And that's like the biggest city where, like, all the stalkers hang out. There's multiple shops and things like that. And I've officially been given a mission in the Red Forest, which is also like a really famous thing. And the Red Forest surrounds a part of Pripyat, which is obviously like the most famous of all this area other than Reactor 4. So I'm like definitely approaching, I would estimate, like near the end of the game. Like I've unlocked a lot of the game's regions. You can hover over the map even if you haven't gone to a region, and it'll like show you an outline of the region, but without a name unless you've been there. So I have a mission in the Red Forest, but I've been doing missions like in and around Rostock. However, the game double backs a lot. So like my next story mission is like, just go back to a territory you've just been to and like go talk to this guy like lives in some random ass cabin. So I got to do that. But other than that, a bit of Call of Duty. We did the Terminator event has come out. I saved up a whole bunch of COD points over the years, so I paid for the Terminator skins, so I have that and the operator. And then the Terminator event came with a bunch more like visual things, like different like the little pictures and that, like your little avatar picture, your calling card. It came with a score streak, I believe, some other stuff. So I completed the Terminator event, which is kind of cool. And that's largely been it. I feel like I don't even know if I've booted up my PlayStation in the past like little while. Actually, I have done one other thing that's been kind of interesting. I played like just one or two quick sessions. I've been playing I believe it's an indie title called Icarus. So it's kind of cool. So it's a survival crafting game, but with a twist. So it's not just like your traditional, like, get a base, cut down wood, build a little wood cabin. Okay. Like now you go up. It's a modern game. So it's a modern setting where you're on another planet and basically like you're a part of like some mining initiative. The planet has unbreathable air and there's different modes to play. So there's like a mode where you just do missions. So they drop you in and they give you a time limit. So if they say 6 days, it's a real time 6 days. Even if you leave the game, it's a real time 6 days. And as you go through the game, there's like some stuff that's consistent. So your character levels up. That's consistent. So the game keeps getting easier. You unlock new technologies. That's also consistent. But there's a currency. It's like this yellow currency represented by this yellow icon. And then there's also a type of currency you can mine and find in the game called exotics. And basically what you can do is you can like preload your character up. So you can go in and be like, okay, like I'm going to unlock the ability to like create a suit. And every time you need a new suit, you have to pay for it. So you have to like keep like feeding that machine. But then when you drop in, it's like, I have a suit, I have a backpack, you know, I'm like equipped. I have a lot of stuff. You can get a gun, for example, things like that. And then you have to start the game again. So you have no base and you have to like start at wood and do whatever. But it goes like, you know, rapid fire. Not only are you gaining experience, but your character's getting better. And so it's like, okay, like I can go from, like it took me forever to get through like the wood log cabin era, right? For example, the first time. But now like I can get to like the iron era like really, really quickly. And so like that's been pretty cool. And you have to gamble a little bit. So it's like, okay, like I have like, you know, 6 days, 3 days. There's ones that are like 3 weeks. And I found like a deep mining exotics like vein. And we just hit the ability to make the deep mining equipment. And so it's like, I've never done it before. It's going to take me forever. But it's sort of like, well, are we going to play this game again in 6 days? Like, what do you guys want to do kind of thing? Like, should we like push objective and like just leave? Should we be like searching around? And what's kind of cool is the map is consistent. So like it drops you in, and like let's say it drops you in the first mission is northeast, and then the next one drops you in the northwest. If you zoom that map out, you could see like, oh, there's fog of war gone in the northeast and in the northwest because I've played in both areas. And so if you remember like, oh, I found like a really good cave with a lot of good resources, and the resources are randomized, but I know it's a big cave, so there's going to be a lot of potential resource spawning in there. I'm going to like run back, and I'll take the time to go back to the old area and like dig that cave up. So like not only is your character building, but your knowledge is building, and it goes up. There's a couple other modes too. Like you can play in like a consistent, like smaller thing where your base is consistent. That's more for like builders. And then there's another mode you can play, I believe, and I haven't played these, so like my details might be a little wrong here, but there's one where you can basically play where there are missions still, and it is a consistent game. There's no time limit. However, the missions are like lesser. So it's like less high stakes. You don't get paid as much, things along those lines. And I've only played in that sort of like more high stakes mode, but it's been really cool. Actually, it's what I like about it is that I'm like keeping this consistent character, building up this character's skills. So even if I like leave the game and I lose my knowledge, because I'll forget, I'll still come back and like have gear, have money, have exotics, have the ability to like go through the tech tree quickly. And I don't have to keep starting like, you know, with like Minecraft, for example, where it's like, okay, start punching a tree. It's like imagine Minecraft, but like, oh, I'm going to jump into a new game that isn't like completely void of resources because I've mined it all out, but I'm going to start with like diamond gear. And so how quickly would you advance, which is cool.
It's a bit roguelite in that way. The idea of the perpetual world as well is reminiscent to me of a game that I played a number of years ago now, that I thought conceptually was cool, but I think they could have like done it in a slightly better way or different way, because it just largely ended up being like a world PvP game where a bunch of people who had stuff just like basically spawn camped the newbie players. But it was a game called Last Oasis that was like clearly supposed to be this perpetual world, like online multiplayer game where you were supposed to like go online with a large group of people, like 10, like basically have a guild and have at least like 10 people to gather resources and stuff. And the whole concept was that like the planet had moved closer to the sun or whatever, or in some way that it, or maybe it was that the planet had like slowed its rotation or something. And so they like all of the oceans and everything in the world, all the water had like dried up, and it was all like deserts, and the planet was like rotating, and you were basically fleeing from being on the side of the planet that was the dark side, because it would be night for so long there, and it would get so cold that it was uninhabitable, and the planet only made like one rotation, like of what we would call like a day. It only made one full rotation like every 6 months or a year or something like that.
Okay.
So you're constantly fleeing to the west or the east. I don't remember which way. Maybe it was the east. Constantly fleeing to the east to stay ahead of the of like the night. Stay in the part of the map that is daytime. And what that meant was that you couldn't ever like set up an establishment in one spot anywhere for a significant amount of time, because eventually that part would get swallowed by the night. And so it was interesting, like conceptually, because the game eliminated that, like, oh, people who play the game for a long time can't just like set up a huge fort and just be here forever and always
Right.
bogart it, because eventually the fort will be destroyed. But it still did become the kind of thing where it's like you can't play it solo, because you're going to go in, and unless you like happen to join a guild that's already like established, you're just going to get like bullied off the server, basically, because it's meant to be like a perpetual world, constantly online, and it's massively multiplayer. So like the idea was cool, but in practice I felt very like really hard to get into if you didn't have a huge group of people to kind of back you up. But it was interesting. It's always interesting to see what people revert to when you give them a small taste of power, and what they do to other people when given that power and the other people don't have that power. Yeah, so that just sort of brought that back to mind.
Well, it's cool because it's kind of like you said. Like, what I like about games like this is like when a game is not like this, it's survival, whatever, it's survival crafting, and like you just build a base that has all your amenities. It becomes boring because it's like you make it super nice looking. You make it super like, I have all my stuff. I have my beds here. My loot is here. You know, all my material is here, whatever. All my friends are here if it's multiplayer. And it's just sort of like, okay, like I've kind of completed the game. And there's no real reason to like make another base unless you're like making like a forward operating base to like explore like a certain area that's far away or something. And it becomes like really easy. Whereas when the game says to you, these bases are temporary. So like if you spend, 3 days or whatever building the front of your base to make it look good, I mean, it's just going to, in your case, burn away. Or in my case, you're going to leave. Like you're going to lose your stake, because it's kind of like a mining company thing in Icarus. So it's like you're going to lose your stake, and like that whole area is going to get wiped. So like you're going to have to leave. And so it's interesting to have it be like, okay, like what do we do? And like how the players like change that. And both are valid. Like some people love to build a massive freaking base, and other people like to do the other thing. But I guess the point is like, it's good to see some evolution of the survival crafting genre, because how many games on Steam are there like spawn in, start beating down a tree. All right, great. You've gotten some sticks, but you need an axe to cut down the whole tree. It's like, holy fuck. Go get some iron. Like, oh, like here we go. And that's how Icarus starts. But then you rapidly realize like, oh, this is not what this is. Like I need to pedal to the metal and learn what the hell I'm doing so I can be successful. But that's it. Bit of survival crafting, bit of the Duga, and that's about it. And a bit of cowering from the Red Forest.
All right, Tim?
Yeah, I guess in the last couple of weeks, I was playing hardcore WoW on the hardcore server, and I did get to level 60 on that character. So we beat it basically. And something that I was like thinking about that was probably going to happen did happen was I hit level 60 on that character, and then there was like not really much to do at the end game aside from like you could keep questing or keep getting resources to like give to an alt. But because it's like on a hardcore server and just playing casually, like with people who are typically playing WoW for the first time, there weren't a whole bunch of people in the guild that were at level 60, and those that weren't really playing those characters anymore. So there wasn't really like much to do. And so I haven't actually touched the game in like a week and a half now, or like 2 weeks since I did that. But it's one of those situations where like if people that I know are like wanting to level characters or whatever, and I can play with them specifically, I would play it, but like I'm not really doing it my own time anymore, because I kind of got that like check mark basically where I get to say that I did it. I beat hardcore, like I got a character level 60 and didn't die, and that was like in my head I'm like, all right, I don't need to play WoW because I did it. There's nothing else to like do right now aside from start another character and level them up too. So but it was really, really fun. It was a really cool like experience to kind of get to play classic again, but where there's like tons of people playing it, but the stakes are raised and stuff, and there's tons of like content that's really being made all around it right now with lots of different creators and stuff. So it's just kind of cool to see a bunch of hype around classic WoW and it being sort of relevant again. But aside from that, probably already got the sense before, whether I mentioned it or not, that playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2,
Electric
which has been really, really good. I think It's one of those games where you are given the main story objective, but you're also given given a couple of paths to do it, and you're also given a bunch of like side objectives. They're all like open right away. They kind of give you the whole world, access to the whole world, or a huge chunk of the first world map right off the bat, so you can just go and do a bunch of stuff. And I didn't realize, I don't think, how like slowly, kind of like power creep wise, the main story advances. Because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go do like a bunch of side objectives first and kind of get some resources, explore the world, learn some stuff, and then like go back to the main story. Because they kind of tell you like, oh, there's no time pressure to like do this main story thing right now. Like, you know, in your own time, do this or that, get some things, and then kind of continue the main story. And I think I'm like way super over leveled for the main story now. You definitely level up like your capabilities in the game a lot faster than the first one. Like your skills and everything is much faster. And they did, as like a sort of like minor story spoilers for the very, very beginning of Kingdom Come 2, for those that played the first one, they did what I was kind of afraid of them doing, and they fucking Metroided Henry, where he canonically had like all of this stuff from the end of the first game, because this is a direct sequel to the first game. He had all this stuff. He's like basically a knight. He knows how to fight. He's got, you know, armor. He's got a sword. He's got the dog that was added in a DLC is like canon. That Mutt that you can get. His name is Mutt. You have all that at the beginning of the game, and then you're like traveling on the road. You get jumped by a bunch of bandits in the night when you like you're like swimming in the water and you don't have any of your like armor and stuff on. Your entire band company gets slaughtered, and then you like are fleeing through the woods from these bandits, and you have just basically your freaking underwear, and you're running through the woods, and you like fight this guy on a cliff, and you fall off the cliff and almost die, and then you wake up in this like herb woman's hut who's like kept you alive for a couple of days, and then Henry is like slowly recovering from his injuries. And so it takes all of your stats that are like, you're like level 15 and you've got all these stats and everything, you have all this gear, and it's all taken away from you. And then you're back to like level 5 and everything, which is not level 1 and everything, which is like the first game. So you start off a little bit stronger than Henry is at the very beginning of the first game, which is like literally from zero. He has nothing. He has no skills in anything. But I think I have had a couple of people tell me that they did play the game because they had been like watching me play it, and that they found it to be very hard because it is the kind of game that sort of demands your attention a little bit more maybe than other games. The combat's pretty hard, and there's like a right and a wrong way to play it, but it is definitely very it's a lot more forgiving than the first game is, in terms of a lot of mechanics. They kind of streamline the combat a little bit more. But it is just as like goofy as the first game. It's like this game that's rooted in realism, and it's like a real time period in a real part of the world with like, you know, period accurate locations and the people and the culture and the languages and the events and all the stuff. It's like, it's real history. But it's, I kind of view it as like a European Yakuza game. Like it's this like serious kind of setting and story, but all of the side stuff is just completely ridiculous. The sort of the first main quest after you're done the prologue is you're trying to gain access to this wedding of these kind of nobles because you're trying to gussy up to the lord of the local area. That's kind of the whole reason that Henry and his band were in this new area of the world to begin with, was because they were supposed to bring a letter to this lord, and then the bandits raid their camp, they steal the letter, and they kill everybody, and so you're basically like trying to fail your way upward. And so I did finally do the like requirements that I had to do to get invited to this wedding, and I played that wedding in almost its entirety today. And they do a whole thing with like, there's multiple stages of the day, and there's like these things you can do at this point, and then time advances, and then you can do these things, and then time advances, and then this is the actual like ceremony, and time advances, and then there's this other stuff, and it's like kind of in multiple stages, and there's multiple activities you can do at each. And it's like the stuff that the game kind of like lets you get away with is so goofy. There's a part where you can like dance with a girl, and her mom literally is like, please, like, you're a young, handsome, strapping young man, please dance with my daughter, because she's really shy and she's a terrible dancer and nobody wants to dance with her. So like, will you do it? And so you can dance with her. And so I did. And then I also have like, because my stats are so high from doing all this side stuff, I afterward I like, you kind of lie to her and you say like, oh, you dance like an elf, you're like a fairy, you're so good. And she's like, oh really, you think so? And then she kind of goes off. And then as you kind of do other things at the wedding and time advances, then like later on in the evening, she like calls you over again and you're like, what's up? And she's like, I have to tell you something. And then you can be like, okay. And she's like, I really like you. And you can say like, I like you too. Or like, you know, let's not do anything like this is just a wedding. Like, let's not advance anything too seriously. And if you say, I like you too, she's like, oh, come with me to the barn. I need to show you something. And the game very clearly shows you like these icons that would be like, if you choose this, it's like this sort of situation or this sort of skill is relevant or blah, blah, blah. And so there's like a romance indicator. And it's if you say like, okay, let's go. But you can play it dumb and you can be like, what do you want to show me? And then she's like, oh, like, I think you know what I'm getting at. And then you can still be like, no, seriously, like, what is it? What do you want to show me? And she's like, oh, I have to show you like my greatest treasure, like wink, wink kind of thing. And then you can, I was like, I have to see how far you can push this. And so then when you select like, then the next thing pops up and then another dialogue option is, oh, like jewelry? And so I click that, and just the actor, I can't remember his name, but the actor who plays Henry did such a perfect job for this whole like sequence of conversation back and forth, where he's like, "Oh, so you mean like jewelry or something?" And she's like, "No, like." She's just clearly getting more frustrated, and she's like, "You know what I'm talking about, though, right?" And then he's like, "Oh, but I thought you wanted to show me something." And then she just goes like, "Never mind." And he's like. She's like, she just cuts it off and she like goes to walk away, and then he's like, I thought you wanted to show me something. Like, you just play it so like fucking dumb peasant. It just went exactly the way that I hoped it would, and the performances were so funny. And I'm like, these are the kind of things where it's like, I love when a game developer just lets you do the thing, even if it's not like objectively the best choice, but it's like, yeah, it's something that you could do. And you know, and then there's results to your choices and consequences and stuff. There was also a really weird, funny thing that happened. The game is not without its glitches. Like, it is a big, pretty like the game has many lofty aspirations for relative to the size of the dev team, I would say. So it's a bit buggy in certain aspects. But the one that had happened for me was there's a part at the wedding where there's some beggars that are at the front gate because it's this big, like, lordly noble wedding. And one of the things you can do is like try to resolve the situation of there being beggars at the gate. Like, you could just ignore them, or there's a couple of ways you could kind of like get them to go away. And one of them was that like you're talking to one of the guards and he's like, what do you think will get them to go away? And the guard's like, oh, they probably just want food. And so Henry's like, okay, like, what should I feed them? Like, should we give them like good food from the tables, or like, what's up? And then the guard's like, oh, you could go to the kitchen and get some scraps from the cook. But she's being really stingy because she wants to use those scraps to make soup tomorrow. So she's got them like locked in the pantry or whatever. And so I went into like the kitchen to talk to her because I was like, maybe I can reason with her, because this guard said he didn't even bother trying to talk to her. He's just like, oh, she's very like, you know, she's stingy. Like, she won't even want to do it. So I'm like, I'm going to go talk to her. So I try to walk in and she's like at this cook pot. And if you've played Kingdom Come, you are aware that there's like in every inn, in some people's homes, and a lot of camps have a cook pot of perpetual stew that you can eat from. And she's like, she's sitting there stirring it. And so I walk up to her and the pot is between me and her. And so when I try to select her, I accidentally select the pot. And so Henry's like, runs in, pulls out a wooden spoon, takes a big old scoop of the stew and eats the stew. And I was like, oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that. And I look down and I see that the prompt says steal food, not eat from pot. And I was like, oh, crap. I just like effectively committed a crime right in front of her. And she's like, what the hell? And she like runs out of the kitchen, like classic NPC behavior. But then I turn around and everyone in the wedding has turned around and they all want to fist fight me. Every single person. And not only that, but the fist fight goes on for a little while, and I was like, what do I do? Like, I can't, I'm trying to surrender to these people. I'm telling them, like, I didn't mean to do it. Like, you know, whatever. Like, is there some sort of, like, you know, consequence for this? Can I, like, you know, get locked in the basement for an hour as, like, a punishment or something? The game fades to black, and I was like, or actually, it pauses first. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, did the game soft lock? Because there's, like, too many NPCs that are, like, aggressive right now. The game fades to black. And it fades back in, and there's a dedicated cutscene for this wedding of everybody fucking brawling each other.
Oh my God.
They're all fighting. And it's like, I love that the devs considered the fact that somebody might go to this wedding, which is a main story like quest, and just be like, "Fuck these guys," and just start fist fighting people, and then it canonically starts a brawl. It's like, oh, it's so good. It's so funny. But that's really cool about that game is there's lots of like potentially like secret endings for things or secret outcomes, because the first game also had like potential secret early game overs for Henry if you did certain things, and some of them are tied to achievements and stuff too, so they're like meant to be like they're secrets that are meant to be found. But you know, I love when games have a thing where it's like, yeah, this we can say that this happened, and then the main story continues. Like, it's not a game over, like we're gonna say this is what happened, and we keep going. But so I originally thought this game was coming out on the 11th for some reason. I don't know why. I had it in my head that it came out on the 11th, but then it came out on the 4th, which was perfect because I was literally on that day like needing a new game to play on stream. So I was like, oh, perfect, because I was really stressing over being able to play and finish this game before Monster Hunter came out. So that gave me like a whole extra week to basically play it. So yeah, I'm just going to basically be trying to make sure I finish it before the 28th.
Are you on track then? Like, you're gonna...
I don't know how long the main story is, but I feel like with how much side content I've done now and how strong my character is, I can probably get through it fairly quickly if I like focus main story. But I'll keep trying to do stuff like along the way, and then if it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, we've got 5 days until Monster Hunter comes out, I need to lock in and I need to just do main story stuff, then I'll do that. But I think it's gonna be fine.
Because I would imagine the comedic side stuff is going to be pretty good for stream. Like, if you can fit as much as you can in there. Because like I've seen some TikTok clips and it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously want to like save stuff for stream, but you know, I'm still, for the most part, I think my philosophy is like I play games the way that I would play them. Like, I don't necessarily like do stuff on stream just for the sake of content or whatever. Right. Sometimes, but for the most part, I play games the way that I would play them anyway. So hopefully, I mean, so far it's been like good enough for a stream. So I've, which is good because for me, in that way, it makes me like able to enjoy the game more because I'm playing it in the way that's fun for me, and you know,
yeah,
that's how you get the most genuine, I think, like reactions and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a natural way to play, a natural way to like present.
Yeah, exactly. What about you, Ryan?
I got a lot of weird stuff going on right now.
What the hell does that mean?
Never mind then.
Well, no. I mean, just like my gaming is kind of all over the place. I guess I'll just start with I played Star Wars Outlaws again. I finally got back into that a bit and played a few missions, and it was great. I enjoyed doing that again. But here's the more weird stuff I've been getting into. I've been booting up my my Switch.
What?
Now that's weird for me. I was actually playing it during the Super Bowl. As I was watching the Super Bowl, I was playing my Switch. And can you guess what game I was playing? And you will not be able to guess, is my prediction.
On the Switch that you were playing during the Super Bowl.
It has nothing to do with the Super Bowl. Just that's
yeah, I know. On your Switch Lite.
No.
Oh.
Switch OLED.
What's something that had a weird port to the Switch, like The Witcher?
Was that on a Switch?
Yeah, I think
the
that game can run on the Switch.
Yeah, the Switcher.
I was making the
Wow.
Switcher joke.
All right.
I didn't see
Okay.
anybody else making that joke, and I was like, come on,
Maybe
it's
I
right
should
there.
have downloaded that. I should have been playing that. Oh
Okay,
man.
so it wasn't The Witcher. I don't know. That's my guess.
New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
Okay. I wasn't, the fact that you said you wouldn't be able to guess, I was thinking, okay, not first party then.
Oh well, yeah, but that's like it's a Wii U title
Yep.
that was brought to Switch.
So were a lot of games.
It's pretty old at this point.
So was Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. Now here's what happened. I do tend to like to play like the 2D side-scrolling Mario games.
Mhm.
Like of all the Nintendo games I don't play, those are the ones I do play. And that might just be because like I remember having an SNES at some point when I was a kid, and I played that game, I don't know, like three or four times all the way through. And so I've just kind of always kind of casually played the 2D side-scroller Mario games. So there's one on the Switch. There's Wonder, right?
Yep.
Just came out, and I was like, oh, I'll pick that up at some point because I'd already played the last one on my Wii U. And so I see a game on sale that says New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and for some reason in my mind, I'm like, that's the 2D side-scroller one. I'm gonna buy that, and then ended up buying it, and it was not Wonder, which I thought it was.
Oh, you meant to buy Wonder, but you
Correct.
bought the port of the old game. Okay.
Correct. So now I'm just playing through the old one.
You know what's really bad is you just reminded me that I own Wonder and I started it and I have not touched it since the first time I played it.
I don't hear a lot of love for the 2D side-scrolling ones. Everyone loves like the 3D one, you know. And then no one really talks about the side-scrolling ones.
You know what is genuinely probably like one of the best Mario, like for me, it's like top, maybe two, easily top 3 Mario games that no one ever talks about is 3D Land on the 3DS.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That game is just like so fun all the way through, and it is so consistent with its quality and like all the challenges and like the secret world and all that stuff. It's so good, and I never see anybody talking about it.
Yeah.
But it's such a solid game. It's like perfect Mario for me.
Well, that's another kind of weird thing, eh? A lot of those games are they ported over to anything else?
3DS stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, to an extent, you would think it could translate fairly well to the Switch or even like the Wii U, because it's like dual screen stuff. You could have top screen on the TV and then bottom screen on the touchpad.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of existed at the same time, so that wouldn't really make sense for Nintendo, I don't think. But it's probably hard to do with like touchscreen stuff.
That leads into the second weird thing I've been doing lately. Now, I'm historically not a Nintendo guy. They're not my kind of games. I buy the systems for some reason, just as a video game collector, I guess.
And then I don't play any games on it.
And I don't play any games on it. I barely touched the Wii U. I mean, most of us didn't. But I really didn't touch the Wii U. But I just figured I want to start collecting physical games just as a hobby. And I was like, what's like a small collection of games
Oh,
that I
yes,
could
I remember
easily
hearing about this.
that I could easily collect? And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? Wii U. I already got some titles, and I could probably flesh it out with eBay purchases or finding them at used game stores or whatever. So I've already begun this. And I looked up a collection of the 50 best Wii U games of all time according to Nintendo Life. And I marked them all down, and I'm checking off the ones I own and the ones I am hoping to purchase. Now, here's kind of the cool thing is on eBay, I've actually found a lot of factory sealed Wii U titles.
I have a couple too.
And I've already purchased 2 of them now.
And what were they?
Let me just bring it up here. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U.
Nice.
Sealed. It's sitting over there.
Solid.
And then this one's not sealed, but I do have others on my list that are sealed that I'm hoping to buy at some point. But this was new Super Luigi U.
Super Luigi Bros. U.
It was an eShop title, but I guess they came out with a physical one. Has a green case.
And you plan on opening those, right? To use them.
Yes. It's theoretically. I've not yet opened Smash Bros. So whether I do or not, I don't know. But I don't have any problems opening them. That's not a concern of mine. I purchased the damn thing. It's mine now. I'll tear it open if I want to. You know.
Do you have the Wonderful 101?
No, I don't own it.
Because that is consistently regarded as like one of the best Wii U games. It's like isometric perspective in a city, and you control like a bunch of superheroes. it's like kind of like Pikmin-esque in that you control a crowd, and then there's different things you can do as the crowd of people, like all form together to make like a giant fist and stuff. And it's it's like the one game that I see like people don't really know about it, but the people that do know about it are like far and away, it's like top 3 titles on the Wii U.
I absolutely never heard of this.
I've seen the cover for sure.
I remember seeing a release trailer for it when the Wii U was the current console and thinking that really does not look like my kind of game.
Yeah.
But then anytime I ever heard about it afterwards, it was just people absolutely singing its praises.
It is on this list.
I was going to say, I would imagine it's on the list if it's the top 50 Wii U games, but...
Now, here's the thing. I'm not planning on buying all of these top 50 ones. Some are eShop, so those ones are kind of off the table. But other ones that I'm not entirely interested in is like the third-party games. Like Batman Arkham Origins is on here. Need for Speed Most Wanted is on here.
Is Mass Effect on
3
there?
is on here.
I have that sealed for Wii U.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. If you want it, you can have it.
I mean, I'll take it if you're giving it. I did see the Mass Effect 3 was like $20 on eBay. So I mean, it will kind of be a case by case basis. I am going to prioritize the first party titles because those are kind of the ones that matter, at least for my personal collection. And then case by case basis for anything else like that.
Do you is Deus Ex Human Revolution Director's Cut for Wii U on there?
That's on the list. Yeah,
I also have that sealed.
Oh my
Now,
god!
why didn't you open them? How come they're sealed?
So when I was working at the Source, they carried games for a while, and they were starting to get out of Wii U, and they had a factory like clearance basically, where on the website only, if you went to the website, they were selling like all their Wii U games for $5. So I bought like 6 Wii U games sealed at like clearance prices, and they were all just like, I was like, I don't have these games. I never played these games. The Wii U is most certainly not the best platform to play them on, but how funny would it be is if the only time I'd ever played Deus Ex Human Revolution was on the Wii U of all things.
Yeah,
I just kind of bought it for the meme.
Now,
but I just never got around to playing them.
you saying that's interesting because a lot of these sealed games are from Canada.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I wonder if that was something
People
a lot
doing
of
the
these
same thing.
resellers did.
Yeah, probably. Got to be on the lookout for companies looking to get out of particular markets.
Yeah.
Just offloading all their stuff for clearance.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a smaller company like that.
That's gonna be a fun little side project for me, I think. And then the final normal thing I did this week was Civilization 7 came out and been playing
How's
a lot of that. It's a bit of a
adjustment, learning curve.
Adjustment and learning curve. Simply because like a lot of features that we had in 6, because 6 was like multiple expansions, multiple leaders, added over
Over time.
7-8 years, however long it's been.
Yeah.
I just got used to the way that game worked. And so coming into this one, it's very kind of bare bones. And there's like no city districts anymore, which was a big part of 6. There's no builders anymore, which was a big part of all the games, as far as I know, at least going back to like 4. So yeah, there's definitely, I was like hesitant at first whether I liked it or not. And I'm still in a period of like testing it out and seeing where I'm at. I know Aaron's been playing the crap out of it, so hopefully he can help me with some questions I have.
He is the resident Civ player.
Yeah, he's already beaten an entire campaign. So, another weird thing is it has ages. It has 3 ages. You start in the age of antiquity, and you basically play a civilization up until the next age, and the game literally stops, and then it like gives you like an overview of how all the different nations performed in that age. You then start the next age, which is the age of exploration. And you basically start a different civilization or something, but it's still the same bones of the old civilization that you had, but then you start going into the future with the new one. I guess the idea of it is like you wouldn't have an ancient like granary in a modern society. Do you know what I mean?
There isn't like ancient Canada.
Right.
Like Canada can only start at a certain point in history.
Right. And so I think they're trying to line up the nations with when they historically appeared and then what they technologically had, stuff like that. So it's a little strange.
How does it work though with like, because Like one of the things in Civ is if you decide to be like a super science heavy nation and you make an economy that supports that, then you can get like modern tanks in like 1812 and everyone else is still using muskets and you're coming in with like an APC. Which I have absolutely done. Yeah. So like how does that work?
You can still advance your research faster. It's not like each new age you basically kind of start and like you have to then race to get to those technologies in that age faster than your opponents.
Oh, so they limit you.
I guess to a degree, maybe, yeah. It's weird. It's definitely weird. It's a new take on it. So yeah, I'm still feeling it out. But
that's it. That just feels so like foreign to me because I know that some people would go like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go like super hard into religion and try to get like a religious victory, and it's easier, arguably, to do that in the early era. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna like go super hard into religion, have my religion support all the like, you know, mid game stuff that it'll do, money, whatever you need or want, and then you like, you know, try to get that.
Yeah,
that's just sort of interesting that it kind of seems like that can't be done. And I haven't played this game, so
the game's just out too. It's like Civ 6 like changed over the years, and this will definitely change over the years. And as new expansions come out and stuff, and they'll be updating things and making things better. So it'll be fun to kind of like ride it out and see what happens. But that's all I got. Tim, where can they watch you doing your thing?
My thing is currently, I was going to say currently live. It's not currently live. Will be live 5 days a week at twitch.tv/the sidetrack, where we are working our way through Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's really, really fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. As a big fan of the first game. Does a lot of things right that I really enjoy from the first one as well. And just getting to see more of our boy Henry, just having a wonderful frolic through 1403 Bohemian countryside, and occasionally on Wednesday evenings as well on the Day One Patch Media Twitch channel.
Playing Orcs Must Die.
We did play Orcs Must Die. I was trying to remember what we played last.
Orcs Must Die.
That was okay. It was
a fun game. Just okay?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah.
I like the series, so like it's cool to see how like because they kind of mechanically change it up quite a lot between games, so it's interesting.
I like it better than the issues that we had with Atlas Fallen. That was a bit of a
boy.
I don't know. Didn't play it.
Well, we had a lot of technical issues, and then it kept like fucking with the stream. Like the stream kept like lagging, but it was because the game kept fucking up, and it was a big mess.
Maybe we should just get through that game, Matt. Maybe let's just fast track the main story.
That's my vote, honestly.
Just off the list, you know. We got Super Mario Bros. U to go play.
I don't
playing Atlas Fallen. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Later.
Peace.